Welcome everybody to our May Wahi Chippewa Valley Continuing Education meeting. I guess I don't have any announcements or anything, except that I'm glad it's finally spring.
Right.
I don't know if Dave, if you have anything or would like
Yeah,
to
I just,
mention?
wanted to mention they're looking for some help for some real experienced inspectors to help with the training down in Milwaukee on the 16th and 17th. So if anybody's got some time they can free up to go down there and help, I think they need 6 people on Thursday and a couple people on Friday. Or maybe it's 4 people Thursday and a couple people on Friday, so. And just also another reminder to update your profiles on the website. Make sure you can fill in as much as you can there.
Sounds good. Our speaker this evening will be Chuck Haldeman from American Waterworks. He'll be talking about foundations. We should probably go around and introduce ourselves too, so Chuck knows who he's speaking to. I'm Mark State from Homestead Professional Inspections out of Whitehall.
Okay.
Jared Succo, Wisconsin Building Inspectors, Eau Claire.
Matt.
Yeah, I know Matt.
Scott Jarvis, Jarvis Home Services, Eau Claire.
James Davis, Ideal Inspection Services, Chippewa Falls.
She will stop down home inspection.
Good luck.
Ken and Culp, pillar post out of Hudson, Wisconsin.
Okay.
John Temple, New Age Inspection, Eau Claire.
Alright. Bunch of Eau Claire, a couple Chippewa, and then some outreaches. So, I don't know how you'd like to start this off, but I'm ready anytime you are.
It's whenever you're ready,
Yeah.
the floor is yours, so we look forward to hearing your presentation.
All right.
Thanks for speaking.
You bet. So, a little bit of my background, I was a home builder for 35 years. I built bridges before that. Started needing body replacement parts. It was time to do something different. So I used American Waterworks on some of my jobs when I had a waterproofing job on a remodel or crawl spaces, things like that I didn't want to do. Some wall stabilization. And so I knew them, they knew me, and then the rest of it's kind of history. I went to work for them. And I am a design specialist. So I go out every day and I meet 2 homeowners a day, 2 appointments a day, and I inspect their home, whatever has to do with the basement. Sometimes it takes me upstairs when we're looking for movement in the house, typically, or if the floors are really saggy, etc. So I go all the way down, I'll get my laser out. I have a little hand laser that I can use in confined spaces. I have the big rotary laser on a tripod. I check for humidity. I check for moisture inside the walls. And then, of course, the first thing I do is address why they called us. Whether it's, water in the basement or they have a wall going in. And those are a couple things I'm gonna talk to you tonight about to identify potential problems. And, you guys can either be the specialist or you refer a specialist. And typically it's a referral, and then we go in and do our inspection. If you refer somebody, they mention your name, we send you $50. So, but you gotta make sure they mention your name and have your address information handy so that we can forward that to you, okay? We start off the inspection interviewing the customer, finding what really is their nuts and bolts. We call it the customer why. And then we utilize that throughout the inspection. And then my big thing is the integrity inspection, because it's my job to point out everything that's wrong with the house and how we can fix it, or if we can even fix it. And so I preface that with, no matter what I give you tonight, you or your house is gonna benefit from what we have to offer. And it's very important to me to go about it that way. And I just don't wanna add things on that they don't need, can't benefit from. So I have a couple videos I can show you about how wall failure works, where you're waterproofing, how we waterproof. 99.9% of our waterproofing is on the inside. We do exterior waterproofing, but there's no warranty with it. I don't know anybody that'll give a warranty for outside waterproofing. If we did outside waterproofing, it goes back to the old version of having drain tile. We do a rubber membrane against the foundation, and then we put 1.5 inches of foam against the rubber membrane. It does two things: protects the dirt from pulling the membrane down, and it also protects it from punctures. And of course, you get some insulation value out of that. It creates another little drain plane. Well, you guys might be familiar with platen that goes on the outside of a foundation wall, and it creates a drain plane, an air pocket, so water can drain down to the drain tile. That's all good, and I used to do the same thing as a builder. I had a little bit more enhanced programs. I never had a wet basin, but at some point it's gonna plug up because it's down in what we call the mud zone. So there's always dirt coming in with that water, and it'll either plug up the sock on the outside or it plugs up the tile itself. We'll have people, we haven't had water in our basement, it's a brand new house, 5 years, it's been great, you know? Or we get the other one that's been 30 years and we haven't had water. We got our drain tile here, but you know, we got a little water in our sump, but it hardly pumps anymore. Drain tile's plugged up. So our version is interior of the house. We break out 8 to 12 inches of concrete over the top of the footing, and depending on how much concrete we have in the footing is where our placement of our piping system is. I have a couple samples here that I can pass around. This is water dirt. This is what actually goes underneath the concrete, and we pour concrete back on top of the pipe, and this flange sticks up against the wall. And that gives you a drain plane against the wall. Let me see if there's a higher version here. Nope. Just gave that one off. This is a product called Clean Space. This happens to be the one we use in the crawl spaces. It's 20 mil thick, double reinforced. We use something similar on the walls to make sure any water drains down to the system. It's mechanically fastened, so it never falls off the wall. It's there to stay. And down at this junction, it actually gets taped off, runs behind here, and then we tape off the bottom, so it's a sealed system. It works really good if you got radon issues. So we're pulling off the 5 sides of the foundation instead of just the floor. Going back to waterproofing, got a couple versions of sumps. It depends on what people's confidence level is and what we put in. If they're okay with one sump and they have the know-how to change out a pump right away if it burns out, then we go with a single pump system. Otherwise, we have a triple safe that has battery backups and 2 AC pumps in it. Block walls, we actually drill a hole in the bottom block. We know that blocks are hollow, and you can have a leak over here and it shows up over there. And typically we go in there, we can see darkening of the bottom blocks or efflorescence on the rest of the blocks. And so it's important to get that water out of there. And the other thing that we do waterproofing that none of the other companies do is we put in what's called a feed line. And our feed line splits a system, the basement, in either halves or quarters. And it kind of depends on if we got pressurized water coming up through the floor or not, but also we want to have a direct line. So say our sump is over there and we have a big water incident over here, we don't want the water to have to go all the way around to get back to the sump. We want to give it a direct line. So we actually can feed the water 4 different directions with just a diagonal line through. Now, if we have a bad enough basement where there's water coming up out of the floor all over, we'll actually put in like a T for that feed line underneath the surface.
That was my daughter's been doing that
Yeah.
2 years ago.
How's that working out?
Good, perfect,
Yeah.
yep.
Good.
Yeah, it was coming, hydrostatic pressure was pushing the water up, it was actually a little.
It looked like a bubbler.
Remember the water heater?
Mhm.
There was a geyser coming up with a water heater, just like that, so they put the sump in the middle, and that's why you get drip from both sides.
Yep. That's one of the reasons. We also look at the soil content, and we have a soils map, and we got a lot of experience of what the soil is in the area. If we get the sugar sand, we want to keep it away from the foundation when we put the sump in, because we can actually undermine the foundation if we get the sump too close. It'll pull the sand in with it, and all of a sudden the corner of the building's broken off. So the next thing in line that we really look for is wall failure, and I can show you a video on that as well. But we look for horizontal crack is the first stage of block wall failure. Stair step cracks is the second stage. Third stage is when you get the block is actually sliding in over the top of another block. Fourth stage is collapse. Poured walls are a little bit different. They end up with a diagonal crack usually as the first sign, and you'll probably see a sister crack on each end of the building when the wall fails, poured wall. And then it starts to lean in, and then once it starts, it doesn't usually stop. Stone walls, they are a nature of their own beast. They have no footing, of course. So when we put in a waterproofing system, we stay back from the stone wall, and we use a two-part flashing that goes up to the wall to collect any water coming down the wall. We still cover it up with concrete, we backfill with rock, run our pipe system. We can pier stone foundations, but we don't lift them up as a rule. They're so crumbly, you start picking up in one spot and they break apart in others. So to circumvent that, we actually use a piece of box steel. It's like a 2x8 piece of hollow steel tube, but it's heavy duty. And we spread that load out about 4 feet from where our pier is that we pick up. One of the only companies that do that. Let's see, what else? Our wall stabilization, we have several things that we can do to stabilize a basement wall. 2 of them will allow us to push the wall back over time. And of course, there's always the option to dig it out and push it back. And typically when we dig it out, we might just go waterproof on the outside and still waterproof on the inside, just keep the water out any way we can. We do radon mitigation. If you have an open crawl space, the first thing we do, any open dirt, is you have to close that dirt up for radon mitigation. So if you walk in there, somebody's got high radon, it's like, you gotta look for dirt or big open cracks. And you gotta take care of those first. We warranty it down to 2.5 or below equicurries. And that's a 5-year period that we warranty it for. There's soil changes, there's wall changes, things like that that can happen. So we put in as many penetrations as we need to. So like if we have a crawl space here and a crawl space there, and we have a drop in the floor where we're stepping down, that's 4 penetrations we're gonna do there. So not just one to take care of all of them. Every time there's a footing run across, we wanna be on both sides of that footing with our penetrations. And that's how we get the best draw. Throw a lot at you here, and we'll watch a couple of videos. You got any questions before I pull up some videos?
Did you do, I had one that I recommended for the evaluation on Rudolph.
What's the last name?
What's that?
What you said?
The Rudolph was the road.
Rudolph Road, okay.
Driveway was pitched towards the home. It had American Water Works, interior permanent drainage system and
Yep.
whatnot. But you had a horizontal crack that looked like it had been repaired once and it was
Open
cracked
up again, yeah.
But that driveway was pitched towards the home, and you could see that it had dropped down from when they poured it, probably 1.5 inches.
Yep.
I didn't know if that was.
That's something we do also. We lift concrete, we use foam to lift concrete. The foam goes in a hole that's smaller than my little finger. So it's not as invasive as mud jacking, and it has a warranty. Mud jacking has no warranty. So we pick up the concrete, and to get a 5-year warranty with this, then we seal the joints. We'll seal the joint along the building, we'll seal any of the control joints, any cracks that are in that slab that we lifted up. We do whole driveways, we do just parts also. We'll do the inside of a garage. Oftentimes you walk in a garage and you can see that it's broke. You know, the middle is virgin soil in a garage, but 4-foot dig out all the way around. And against the house is an 8-foot dig out. So that settlement there's probably a huge gap there along the house.
For those garages, at what point are you just saying it's probably more economical just to jackhammer it out?
We kind of talk over with the customer on that. I think we're at, I'm not a concrete guy all the time, I just fill in for them when they're busy, but I think we have a minimum of $1,500 per single stall to pick that concrete back up. Because there's lots of voids, but we end up using a lot of product when we do a garage. So they're gonna bring product in, whether it's gravel, or whatever, once they tear that out. So they'll have to fill it back and then recompact, and you're still kinda got the same problem when you do that. When you foam it, it's there, it's done, it's compacted the soil. Foam works better, but there is a price point, you know, you just gotta, and I try and walk the customers through that. We're pretty lucky here in the Eau Claire area, yep, for pricing. You can probably get that torn out and replaced for $15 a foot. You go to the cities, it's 25 to 30. So we kinda got transitions when we get to Hudson, et cetera, that things change as far as availability of concrete replacement. And the mess, of course, you know, we're in there in a day. It's done, you can drive on it 15 minutes later. If we do the joints, seal the joints and the cracks, we want you to wait 24 to 48 hours before you drive on it. And I got a couple videos that will explain that, so if you guys wanna watch videos, it's very educational. If I bore you, tell me, we'll change to the next one, okay? So, anything else you wanna add? Matt, you seen some of our work?
It's good work. It's impressive.
Yeah.
I like it.
Lifetime warranty on
Yeah.
any foundation repairs, whether it's wall stabilization or if the corner of the foundation's broke off and we pier it. Also, lifetime warranty on the waterproofing. Now, we say warranty for a reason, because if it leaks for some odd reason, we're gonna come in and make sure it doesn't leak anymore, but we don't repair any finish of the basement.
You just hold it.
Yeah, right? There's no heat in there. No. Yeah. Kind of like
Grab a couple of tissues, put your phone underneath.
what's that?
Put your phone or something underneath. Tissues.
All right.
Cooler than.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, I should get my phone there.
Clean silverware.
Here, let's get
Oh, like that. There you go.
That's all you guys need
Perfect.
to see there. So this is WaterGuard. We'll start out with the waterproofing end of things.
While most everything in our society has been improved in the past 70 years, not much has changed with perimeter basement waterproofing drain systems. The same problems exist: how to prevent it from clogging, drain water from the walls effectively, make it less disruptive, and look nice. Well, all that changed in 1994 with the invention of the WaterGuard system. The patented WaterGuard uses the same general approach: install a drain under the perimeter of the basement floor with some big improvements. WaterGuard is a specially engineered piping system designed specifically for basement waterproofing. The WaterGuard drains water from the walls, the footing wall joint.
So this is kind of an important diagram here. You can see the WaterGuard right down here. We aim to be on top of the footing. When we're doing a block wall, it's really easy for us to tell how much concrete is actually over the top of this footing, because each block is 8 inches tall. There are exceptions to that, but typically it's an 8 by 16. And then we measure this distance right here, and that tells us how much concrete's over the footing, whether our system will fit into there. If it doesn't, then we move it out to here and just get it down as far as we need to get concrete back over the top. And we use a 2-part flashing to come up and still achieve this drainage against the block. We drill holes in the bottom block so it drains everything out. Any questions? No?
And from under the floor and takes it away to a sump or other drain. The perimeter of your basement floor is opened up and a trench is developed. The WaterGuard is carefully set in place and backfilled with stone. Then the floor is restored flush. Since the WaterGuard is designed to sit on top of the footing instead of in the dirt, it can never clog with mud washing into it. The WaterGuard system is less disruptive to your foundation than other systems, and it has a neat, clean wall drain built right into it. A special drain outlet takes water from the water guard to the sump, and special water guard ports allow easy inspection and convenient dehumidifier drain points. WaterGuard is the most advanced waterproofing system in the world.
Okay, so one of the key things to this system also is we're only taking the water off that will affect the interior of your house. We don't want to take water off that's a foot down or 8 inches down or 6 inches down, because it's water that you'll just be pumping all the time in certain circumstances. So we only address the water that's going to affect the house itself. This is what you guys have probably seen quite a bit of in the past. This is the old Beaver system. Our version is called Dry Track. Comes in a little longer lengths. It has a bigger track, and then it's made out of slightly heavier material. The same epoxy is used to seal it to the floor. We grind the floor, scariate the floor, and then we epoxy it to the floor. We can run a pipe. There's a pipe coming in underneath that cold molding there, and it drops down into the sump out of sight. Wisconsin requires us to have 1 inch sticking up. The sump has to be above the floor 1 inch. Minnesota, Iowa, North Dakota, you don't need that. You can be flush. We have a hard cover here that we can put on in those states that this is flush and there's no pipe coming out here. We can actually run the pipe back out to the wall and then up the wall, or follow the trench down to the other side of the building. We can still do that in Wisconsin. We can actually discharge underneath the concrete and up the wall through the rim joists on the other side of the building if they don't have an open ceiling or whatever for us to get through. This is what the sump looks like for somebody that doesn't want to worry about their sump ever again. And it's also for really high water situations. It's got a battery backup as well.
Your sump pump is critically important in keeping your basement dry. Failure of your sump pump results in a flooded basement, just what you're trying to avoid. Failure can occur for one of 3 reasons. The pump has failed, the pump can't keep up with the amount of water, or the power goes out. Basement System's Triple Safe sump pump system is the most advanced protection in the world and addresses all 3 of these concerns. The Triple Safe system has 3 high-quality, efficient pumps. First, a primary pump set at the lowest level, which handles the pumping under normal circumstances. In the event that this first pump fails, a second pump set a bit higher in the Triple Safe system will take over and pump the water out. In the event that the first pump cannot keep up with the flow of water from a very heavy rain, then both the primary and secondary pumps will operate at the same time, pumping double the amount of water out for the time necessary. In the event that the power fails, or if the circuit breaker's tripped, then the water will rise to the third pumping system, an ultrasump battery-operated backup pumping system. This pump will operate off the battery power supply and charging system included, and pump the water out while an alarm tells you this third pump is operating. All this equipment will not fit in a standard round sump liner, so the Triple Safe system has a specially designed twin liner configuration. Many other basement systems' world-class features are standard with the Triple Safe, including clean pump stands to keep the pumps out of any silt and sediment that may wash into the sump liner from the ground. An attractive 2-piece airtight lid design for easy access while keeping moisture, odors, and insects out of your basement and preventing objects from falling into the sump hole. A specially designed floor drain to drain water from any plumbing leaks in your home, which lets water down but damp air cannot come up into your basement. And a water watch alarm system, which sounds off like a smoke detector before your floor gets wet, in the highly unlikely event the water rises above all pump operating ranges. The Triple Safe sump pump system is for homeowners who want no worries with the highest possible protection against basement flooding.
I apologize for the narrating there. The guy, he owns the company that we buy the products from, so he likes himself quite a bit. You'll see that a couple more times, but they have great products, great technology.
Is there any kind of alarm that goes off or that would be available for, so if pump one fails and pump two is working? Cause the homeowner's never gonna look down there to see that pump one's not working.
Right.
Is there some way that indicates to them?
Well, it could be the GFI as far as that goes, but we also offer another system called ShipShape, and it's a monitor, and it's like a, for lack of better terms, it's a Google plug. So we can monitor that plug-in, and we can actually tell when that pump is gonna go, because it'll start drawing more electricity, etc. It alerts us, it alerts ShipShape, and then we contact the homeowner and say, there's something going on with your pump, you should probably have it replaced in the near future. And same thing with the dehumidifier, we hook that up and it comes right to your phone and alerts you that there's a problem. And if you don't have a smartphone, we alert you, the customer. That's about a $500 option to do that, and then you can add as many appliances as you want throughout the house, whether it's a freezer or whatever, to monitor those things.
Makes sense.
Good question. This is what you see outside. This allows the pump to pump year round and not worry about freeze ups.
Sump pumps are important parts of crawl space encapsulation systems and basement waterproofing systems. But sump pumps only work if their discharge pipes remain clear so the water can flow out. The biggest threat is in the winter. Even when pitched downhill, snow and ice can block the outlet of the pipe. When the pump runs, it fills the pipe with water that can't run out. And then the whole pipe freezes solid, causing your crawl space or basement to flood. Basement waterproofing companies had no answer to this problem until 1996, when Basement Systems developed a real breakthrough solution to the problem: the Ice Guard system. The patented Ice Guard is a special fitting installed on a discharge pipe outside your home. Because of its special shape, even though it has large holes in it, no water escapes unless the discharge line is frozen. If your sump pump discharge pipe freezes, the water will automatically eject out of the Ice Guard system onto the surface of the ground, away from the house. There are no valves to turn and nothing for you to do in the winter. It's totally automatic. The worry of your sump pump discharge pipe freezing goes away with Ice Guard.
Questions on that? We put that on every single discharge that we have unless it's physically impossible. But typically we can candy cane that if we have really low grade or high grade, I should say. We can candy cane that so it'll still work. This is, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just happened to see my first sump pump discharge and a pipe going underground and then out to where it discharges, about 10 feet away from the home. But
Yep.
that's the first thing I thought of, was what's gonna happen when that freezes.
Yeah.
Now you're messing with it.
That's why you need one of these. I mean, they will freeze up and then they'll be backed up and then you got water.
You guys ever run like heat tape or anything?
We don't need to, no. That avoids having to run heat tape. So, like, we'll do a buried discharge for customers who don't wanna pick up the standard discharge and move it, et cetera, or worried about the wind blowing it up against the house. We put a lawnscape outlet on the end. You got two choices. One that bubbles out of the ground and just does its thing, and sometimes you get a slop hole, because it's a lot of water. But then if you have any slope, we have another one that's actually got a 15-degree angle on it where it'll flow out of it downhill. The Ice Guard will let you know if it's been crushed. We use PVC all the way from inside the house from the pump all the way out. The discharge lines are 1.5 inches, and then they neck down into a 3-inch discharge. So there's one common discharge going out from if you have two of those Ice Guards. The only time you need 2 Ice Guards is if you're gonna do a triple safe. The battery backup will pump up to 12,000 gallons on one charge. So I'll give you perspective of gallons, what size that is. It's a 40 by 40 basement, 8 foot deep in water. So it doesn't have as much volume, capacity as the regular AC pumps do, but it will continue to just pump and pump and pump. 12,000 gallons worth. Every 5 years, gotta replace the battery. We come in and test them for the customer, let them know how the battery's doing.
Are those batteries on a triple charger?
Yeah, it comes with a charger. It's a tender, and we can do a dual battery setup for people that are way out in the sticks or kind of living off the grid. We have a dual battery thing with hooked in series.
I had one down in Dealsville, and it was literally like a waterfall, 24/7, it could never stop, from the water table. And they had a sump pit with a, sump pump, and then about towards the top, they had it notched out. So if that stopped, it went into a second big, huge square, probably like 3 feet by 2 feet.
Sure.
Probably about 2 feet deep with a secondary sump pump. And then they also had a battery backup for that,
Yep.
because it was continuously running,
Yeah.
like water was just pouring in like somebody had a bathtub of faucet.
Yeah, you can go to a bigger pump with some of that stuff, but, like these will run, one is a 1/3 horsepower, the other one's a 1/2 horsepower. So they can get rid of the water. We've had a couple situations where we've actually had 2 of those in. When we have 150 lineal feet of perimeter on the house, that's right on the cusp of where we have to insist on one of these, or we even go to 2 sump locations. Cause it's just too much footage. You got a lot of water.
Yeah, I don't know if that was just the water table was that high, cause,
You guys know where Bears Grass is down towards Augusta? No? There's a house down there that we did, and the water, I mean, it was, the water table, the floor was covered. If they didn't pump it out, the floor was covered. We went in there and waterproofed it, and it took all that away. So, I mean, you can win, but you only wanna take away what's causing the problem. If you try and get too deep, which they maybe have been a little bit deep with what they were doing, then you're taking more water than what you need to.
Is it a 12-volt battery or
Yep, it's just a deep cycle.
deep cycle?
Yep. Yeah, you probably, we haven't gone to lithium yet because they're spendy.
Right.
But the lithium battery even lasts longer.
Chuck?
Yes, sir.
You always see the service log on the front of the systems.
Hopefully.
Is there a requirement on how often they have to have it serviced for warranty or anything like that?
Not at all. What we do is we give a 3-year warranty on the AC pumps. They're Zoller cast iron pumps. We've got them out there. They're 22 years old, still running. But the battery backup one, we give a 5-year warranty, and that's simply because of the battery. And some people just wanted that peace of mind, where we come in and check all the time, and a lot of, we took on ShipShape, a lot of those people are converting over to having that monitor system, and we still come in, then we'll come in every other year or something. But initially, when we set up a program, we include a 1st-year revisit, and we use that to re-educate the customer, because they always have questions. And then we get a chance to check over all of what we've done to make sure that it's not failed at any point. But if we're doing our job, there's a call log there. This is Basement Systems. There's other companies out there that are in this same network. Badger Basement is in the same network. Sure Dry is in the same network, and Sure Dry is over on the east side of the state. DBS comes out of Duluth, Superior up there. They're in the same network. So we use all those same materials. It's kind of, if you look at it like it's almost like a franchise thing, but we don't pay a franchise fee. We just use their technology and we buy their products from them, and that's how they get paid. Same thing goes for our foundation repair. That's Support Works out of Omaha, Nebraska, and they make all their own stuff. They galvanize their own stuff. They ship it to us. We buy it. They give us an engineering program to design things correctly. Good question there. That's
Hey, Chuck?
yeah,
Egress windows.
yeah.
So, like I just did one on the west side up there yesterday, and you gotta calculate egress window drainage into system too, right?
Yeah.
And if they don't do it right first, and draw it down into the drain tile,
Yeah.
these things can fill up and leak.
They can.
And there's a gray channel with a sheet.
Yeah, we call it a well duct drain.
Well done. Yeah.
Yep.
Explain
And
that.
we can also put a sump into the
Correct.
window well, but you have to take that out in the winter.
Can you get, you can't get it tied to the system, because you can't go underfoot.
No, it would just eject out onto the ground.
Oh, so,
Yeah,
okay.
we put a little notch in the well itself and eject it, discharge it out. But
Window wells are such a, egress window well, they fill up full of water.
let me see if I can find that well duct drain here for you.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday, and one of the gray sheet, the center part of each window, block wall, port wall, must be cracked there. They put that gray sheet over the panel, that must catch the water, and then they tie that down into the system. Right, Chuck? Is that-
Yeah, it's so we drill a hole right through the foundation into the well, and then we have a drain. It's like a little half moon floor drain. And if that starts to fill up, it goes into the floor drain, passes through the hole, and goes right down into our system. Typically, we don't do that on somebody else's window well. We use a rock well window well. We buy them from Farrell, and it comes with a cover that'll hold up to 500 pounds, so nobody falls through it. It's also hinged to the house, so it never blows off. Okay. We give that a 15-year warranty. We follow what the manufacturer has for warranty on that. I'm trying to find that. Trying to find that well duct drain. I know it's in here. Let's come over here. You guys know that the rim joist is the least insulated place in the whole house? Yep. That's where all their bugs come from. And
Termites.
yeah, termites. And the top of the thing to look for there also is the top of the block is sometimes open. They didn't use a solid top block. So there's water vapor coming out of that just like a chimney all the time. And that'll cause your rot and mold.
You still find glass bad in there.
Yeah, it works
No,
perfect.
I-
Everything. Just cut it.
Yeah.
It's all cut and
It's
perfect.
fine.
I want to find this well duct drain if I can here. Huh. I don't know if they changed something here. It's not on here anymore. Oh well, we'll move on.
There's
for
one
now.
with heat grasses that are.
Yeah, that's not it.
Not it.
I'll find it yet. So
Rockwell.
yeah, it's just the rock wall itself. Yeah, rock wall has nothing to do with that drain system. So I'll have to look at another area, I guess. Used to be right down here. Must be some concrete wall floor. Anyway, so we will look at the clean space here. This is the first option for controlling water on the walls.
In many cases, basement floors can be kept dry without doing anything to the basement walls. However, the walls would likely be damp or wet at some time, which could damage anything that leans against the walls. Water and water vapor from the wall will contribute to damp basement air, and many times basement walls are stained, chalky, and ugly. There are a few options for basement walls. One good one is the CleanSpace wall system. CleanSpace is a heavy, durable liner, like a pool liner material, made from layers of high-density polyethylene for puncture resistance, low-density polyethylene for flexibility, and polyester cord reinforcement for incredible tear resistance and strength. CleanSpace is installed on your basement walls with drilled-in mechanical fasteners, so it'll never come off like a coat.
So to get that to come loose, you actually have to break the cap off. It's a little plastic Christmas tree that drill into the block, the poured wall, the stone, the mortar joint, and it gets hammered in. So very secure, and then we tape off all the joints.
Well, CleanSpace stops water vapor and drains any wall leakage down to the WaterGuard drainage system under your basement floor. Its washable surface makes the walls look clean and white, and it brightens your basement with the available lighting. CleanSpace is a great option for basement walls.
So that's option number one. We offer an insulation You guys might have seen this at Menards. They have a version of this. It's polyisoincinerate foam. It's made not to melt if it gets on fire. And then it's got a vinyl skin on it so it doesn't break down like the pink and the blue foam, so it doesn't off-gas, no VOCs. There's a foil face on the back of it, so it's a vapor barrier. So if you want a storage area or even a play area that's warmer, this is what we go to.
Can you fasten that to like a stone foundation?
That's harder. If it's the quarry stone, you know, where it's got a smoother surface, then we can. Otherwise, this isn't really an option. We'd end up putting the clean space vapor barrier up, and then you can frame out in front.
Okay. How do you fasten that clean space to a old stone foundation? That's all.
Yeah, good question. We do use those same Christmas trees, only longer.
Okay.
And we can drill into the stone, or we drill into the mortar joint, and then we spray foam on the very top of it to stay.
Okay.
This is the Taj Mahal here. If you're ready to finish your basement, you have straight walls.
Basement walls are ugly, damp, and cold. Whether you're looking to finish your basement now or possibly sometime in the future, you need a solution. Basement Systems' unique Basement to Beautiful panels are a great way to go from ugly, damp, cold walls to warm, dry walls with studs and electrical chases ready to finish in one simple step. The Basement to Beautiful panels are custom engineered foam panels with integral studs that are fastened directly to your foundation walls. They eliminate conventional stud framing and fiberglass insulation altogether. The Basement to Beautiful panels are completely inorganic, so they can never rot and mold cannot grow in them. The panels feature a unique, advanced silver glow foam insulation with graphite infused into the foam. This graphite drives the insulation value, or R value, of the foam up by 24% over conventional foam by lowering its thermal conductivity and gives it that silver gray shine. At 2.5 inches thick, the Basement to Beautiful panel creates a warm, protective blanket around your basement. Wood studs can rot and grow mold, so there's no wood in the Basement to Beautiful panels. Instead, the panels feature metal studs integrated into the foam. However, metal studs are highly thermally conductive.
You guys get the
and
point
when
of this
used
one?
to conventionally frame an exterior wall in a basement against your
Go on
cold
here.
foundation walls, each metal studs becomes a thermal bridge in the wall, creating.
So this is the difference on window wells that we offer. It actually has a solid bottom. We attach it to the wall and we seal it to the wall, okay? This has a lid that fits, and there's a little flange right here that goes up underneath the siding. So everything sheds down. You see some of the window wells that are out there now where they've gotten the universal cover, and they stick it up under the siding, or try to, or against the siding, and they'll still get water in their well. Key about this is it's too light, too bright, too warm for anything to live in there. So rodents don't go in there, insects don't go in, weeds don't grow. They're not cheap, but they do a very good job. Let's see what else I got here for you. So we'll go into wall failure here. This will kind of reiterate what I said earlier.
When your home was built, a hole was dug before construction could take place. Once the foundation walls were set on the footing and the flooring system was installed, that hole was backfilled with loose soil. This area of backfilled soil is commonly referred to as the active wedge. Because this soil has been disturbed, it allows water to flow through it more freely. As the soil absorbs the water, it also expands, putting a tremendous amount of lateral pressure on the foundation wall. During rainy seasons, water will start to pool and rise up from the bottom of the wall. That's thousands of gallons of water, equaling thousands of pounds of hydrostatic pressure. And finally, when moisture in the ground freezes, the expansion creates more damage. Depending on foundation wall type, you'll see the damage in different stages. On poured walls, stage 1 of wall failure happens when the pressure from the soil becomes too great and a diagonal crack forms running up the wall. As outside forces continue, the wall starts to lean inward from the top. This is stage 2. And if this movement isn't addressed, stage 3 is total wall failure. In block walls, mortar joints are the weakest part. Here, a horizontal crack near the frost line signals stage 1. As outside forces continue to press against the wall, stair-step cracks form at the corners, stage 2. Your basement slab holds the bottom row block in place, but in stage 3, shearing occurs when the wall starts to slide in over this block. And just like poured walls, the final stage is total wall failure. At SupportWorks, our wall solutions address each stage for a permanent fix.
So, is that educational on that end of things?
Quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned in there, first stage is horizontal crack, second stage is step cracking. I've seen a handful where it's just step cracking, no horizontal at all, in the corners. And from my understanding, that's either frost heave or settlement of the footing in the corner.
Most
correct?
likely. So what you look for there is, you look for the top or the bottom that have a bigger gap than the other one.
If it's
Then-
uniform throughout the whole thing,
Then it's still probably one of the walls is moved, it's moved in somewhat, and, the bigger the block, if you go to a 12-inch block, it acts more like a poured wall. It tips in. If you go an 8-inch block, which we see a lot of, typically, it's that 2 or 3 feet down, it's got a crack horizontal. And then, the other thing to look at on the exterior of the building, is the crack right at the corner on one of the corner blocks. If you see that crack there, and there's not another crack next to it, what's happening is that wall, as it bows in, is rotating that outside corner. So it breaks that block loose. And it tells you that that wall is moving. And sometimes it can be both 3 or 4 walls. You can't just say, it's only one wall.
is it always an issue, even if that, cause from my understanding, if it's a 1/4 of an inch gap or greater, there's issues that need to be addressed. If it's just a hairline crack or just a very small 1/16 of an inch crack, step crack, you know, at the corners, and you have a sister, you know, it's either bead from the top down or from the bottom up. Can't remember which one is which, one's frost heave and one's settle. But that's not always an issue that has to be repaired, is it?
Well, when do you think the wall's strongest? Before it cracks or after it cracks?
Before it cracked, yeah.
So once it's cracked, it's damaged, it's broken. So it's incident based then. So when you have a lot of rain, that's an incident, okay? You have gutters, your gutters are off and you've got a lot of water piling up right there, that's an incident. You get a really heavy rain in the fall and then a really hard frost right away, that's an incident that pushes on that wall because the soil's saturated and it's stronger. So it can't really judge whether it's okay or not. If it's broke, it's broke. It's comfort level. I'll give you a story. I had a guy in Alaska that had shearing, stage 3 failure of his walls. And it was one wall that was stage 3. And he said, it's been that way since I moved in, it's been 5 years. And it's like, well, why'd you call him, And I told him, and 4 days later, he calls up, sent a picture, and said, can you do anything for me now? And there's 3 walls that caved in. So they had a big flood down in Alaska, and the street backed up. He came up against the house. Instead of taking the 1 wall out, once it took that out, it weakened everything, took 3 walls out. So he's got 3 feet of mud and block in his basement. And thankfully, the house was still standing. There was one pylon in each corner that was still intact. And think about it this way, so as your wall bows in, or you get settlement, that wall depends on the pressure from the house, the shear pressure from the house to stay strong. So when you take that pressure off, this wall can move a lot easier. So once it starts to move, once that crack shows up, that wall has gotten shorter. So then it doesn't have the weight of the house to depend on anymore. So
in your opinion, any kind of step cracking, any kind of cracking in the foundation at all should be further evaluated?
I think so, yeah. The way I evaluate it is either with a 4-foot level, laser, or a string outside from corner to corner. And quite frankly, I can walk up and I can see it, you know, but you can measure, go at the corner and take your tape measure and measure the siding at the corner, go down the middle of the wall and measure that same measurement. And you can tell, you know, if it's 2-inch bow in or lean in or whatever. So there's just easy ways to do that, but sometimes it's not easy. You gotta try a couple different methods to see what's going on, but that's our job, you know. And from what I understand, it's just your job to call it out and say it needs further review. But yeah, so like if you can't decide whether it's heave or settlement, if you have a laser, that's the easiest way. If you follow a mortar line, you follow the ceiling, you follow the floor, and it kind of weighs out which way it's traveling. You know, you'll get a consistency on 3 sides, and then all of a sudden that thing's different. Is it different up? Is it different down? And that tells you which direction things are going. Good question. I'm going to show you 3 different products. Let's see. Well, I'll show you more, I guess. So we're on walls here now. This is our, kind of the one we use the most. This is a 2nd degree spin-off from power braces. Power braces were the first thing that came in, and I'll show you that in a minute. The
When the
geolocks.
walls that are supposed to hold up your home crack, bow, and lean, it can be scary.
That's
and
a
it leaves
great
you
picture
wondering,
right there.
how should I fix it?
So if you see sheetrock bowed or the tape rippled at the top, that means that wall has moved and there's no room for the sheetrock because it was tied up against the wall and it's gotta have some place to expand, so it humps up. So you'll have one bay that'll hump out and the next bay will hump in and go on the wall.
And it leaves you wondering, how should I fix the problem? The Geolock wall anchor system from SupportWorks is the solution. The Geolock system permanently stabilizes your walls with a high-strength galvanized steel system. Galvanized rods connect steel wall plates inside the home to earth anchors located in the ground outside, well past the problem soil that's pressing into your wall.
So this is a timing thing when you want to tighten it up and straighten it. You gotta wait for dry periods. You can just crank on it and you'll pull that plate in farther than what you need to, but you can actually hear the block move when you're cranking that down. We give you a torque wrench and it's set at the right setting, and you just go and tighten it up until it clicks and then leave it alone for another month or 2 and then move on.
How
Do it
far
again.
out are you going with those rods to get the solid ground to pull again?
Good question. So typically there's 12 feet of rod that goes out, so we're about 11 feet from the face of the foundation. We can go down as close as 6 feet. We use a bigger plate, and it's more expensive to do that, but a lot of times we'll have like a limited side yard or something. And then we might go to a power brace, something else. There's a couple different things we can do there.
How do you relieve the pressure on the outside so that when you start to pull it in, it actually, or pull it out, it actually pulls out? I mean, that you're pulling all the pressure from the outside and you're pushing it in too, right? So
Right.
what kind of prep do you do so that you can get it to move?
We can dig it out and we can move it all in the same day if you want. But otherwise it's just time and you're taking up that gap. So like the frost heave and all that and the freeze back, that leaves a space every year. And you just try and take up more of that space. And depending on the ground, you know, the heavier the ground, the harder it is to pull it back. It takes more time, but sand will actually squeeze and displace. Yeah, but if we dig out, we can actually fix shearing. You know, when the block is sheared in, we use hydraulics and push the block back, and then we anchor it with some kind of anchor system. I'll show you another version of this here. So here's the C-channel version.
When the walls can leave you wondering, how do I
Here's
fix
shear.
this problem? The Geolock C-channel anchor system from SupportWorks is the solution. The Geolock system permanently stabilizes your walls with a high-strength galvanized steel system. Galvanized rods connect C-channel anchors inside the home to earth anchors
So whoops, what happened there?
When the walls that are supposed to subside well past the problem soil connect steel wall with a high strength gap solution. The geolock wall anchor system from
Sorry.
when the walls that are holding up
I think it
works
was
is the solution.
Yeah, there you go.
So the key to this is we're bolting into the concrete floor, okay? And we can do this even if there isn't a floor, we make a footing for it to bolt into. And we set the bottom as close to the wall as we can, and the top can be out a little bit, and then as we tighten it, it just squishes everything back in. Just putting the anchors on there won't cure the shear. We have to dig out to cure the shear. But we can guarantee that that wall's not gonna move anywhere. And then at this point, we'll probably waterproof because there's most likely gonna be water running out of that block. Okay?
The
Trying to
geolock
keep
system
this as a short
permanently
version for
stabilizes
you.
your walls with a high
These we use when we don't have space or we're really deep. We're going into a hillside.
The
Helical anchor.
SupportWorks helical anchor system is a smart solution, uniquely suited for failing basement walls where exterior access is limited due to property lines. It's also useful for failing retaining walls. Installations can be performed year-round and are usually completed in only a few days. Here's how it works. First, a small hole is cored through your foundation or retaining wall. Next, helical anchors are mechanically screwed out through your foundation or retaining wall into the soil while being carefully monitored to achieve capacity. Once appropriate distances and capacities are reached, a low-profile wall plate is secured to the foundation or retaining wall. Once all components are connected and tightened, your wall is permanently stabilized. At this point, you can rest easy, knowing your basement or retaining wall is safe and secure. And the low-profile wall plate looks neat and clean.
So that's how we deal with limited space on the sides of the house. Power braces, this is the old
Now that we
Standard.
understand that the soil, you'll be happy to know, these problems can be fixed permanently. The patented power brace system from SupportWorks is a proven solution to restore your failing foundation basement walls. Here's how they work. Heavy-duty steel beams are custom.
So what we see here is we're putting a bracket in between the floor joists and attaching that beam to it with an adjustable screw. Again, we put it right next to the foundation on the bottom, and the top of that might be sticking out 4 or 5 inches. And then we push it back over time. When we're perpendicular to the trusses, we have to come out 4 bays. And I'll show you a picture of that here shortly.
Fit for your basement wall height. And a top bracket with a tightening bolt is securely fastened to your floor joists.
So right there is when we're on like an end wall and we gotta come out 4 bays with blocking, and we double block, and then we have that steel strip that's our anchor. And then we can push that back.
So you have to come back over time and continue cranking on
We
this?
typically will teach the homeowner to do it, unless they don't wanna do it, then we charge a service fee to come out.
Then you need one of those wrenches for it?
Yep, yep. And it's set at the proper torque setting. Each one of these takes a little different torque setting. Depends on how it's installed. So one's 80 pounds, one's 60 pounds, one's 40 pounds.
Have you ever ran into a foundation where you guys were not able to repair it?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you the very last one here, shot lock. This is like the last ditch. If we can't fix it with that, and then you're gonna get a new basement. But here's carbon armor. This is a different approach. This does not straighten the wall.
We meet with homeowners like you by bonding carbon fiber straps to your wall that are 10 times stronger than steel. The technology is similar to that used by the U.S. Department of Defense, Army Corps of Engineers, and aerospace engineers to reinforce skyscrapers, bomb shelters, and bridges around the world. But carbon armor is specifically designed to reinforce basement walls. Installations require no outside digging and can be completed in 1 day or less. The system's flexible design allows the strap to contour tight against your foundation wall for ultimate coverage and adhesion. And the low-profile design of carbon armor means you can conceal it easily with drywall or even paint with no loss of valuable living space. We know you want this problem fixed.
So that's a tension-based fix. It just never lets the wall bend anymore, doesn't let it tilt in anymore. We hook up to the sill plate, and then we run it all the way down to the concrete floor. We used to break out the floor and then put it all the way down to the very footing. We don't do that anymore.
It's that strong? Like
Yeah,
just,
yeah, 10 times stronger than
nuts.
steel. So,
wow.
very tough stuff. We can't use it on a sheared wall. The shearing will, the stuff you can cut it, but it won't tear.
Wow.
It's kind of weird. This is how we fix floor systems. Anybody need a bathroom break or anything before I go on? All good?
Now that we understand the causes behind your sagging, bouncing floors, you need a solution that is guaranteed to last. And the Foundation Support Works Smart Jack system is the answer. It's designed to tackle all the reasons floors sag and bounce in the first place. And with multiple configuration options, you are guaranteed to have a design plan specifically tailored to your home. Here's how it works. We start by installing a proper footing. This footing allows the weight from the floor load above to be distributed through a much larger surface area in the soil.
Have you guys ever heard of the bulb of influence? It's an engineering term. What they're doing is they're putting that engineered stone and they compact it, and it creates a footing that actually pushes 5 directions instead of straight down like a block of concrete. So each one of the sides of that 2x2x2 hole is taking some of the load from the post.
In fact, this footing decreases the weight placed on the soil by up to 90%, eliminating the culprit of weak soil. Next, steel columns are precisely cut to ensure a perfect fit between the solid base footing and the support beam above. Finally, the heavy-duty adjustable top brackets are installed and tightened. The Smart Jack system has been tested and proven to withstand loads of over 30,000 pounds, meaning that under the right conditions, we have the opportunity to actually lift up your floors, closing up drywall cracks and gaps along the floor trim, giving your once sagging, bouncing floors a solid, sturdy feeling.
So we can do this in the basement or a crawl space. We can replace the main beam in a basement as well. We can engineer the steel that needs to replace wood, or we can replace it with, micro lambs.
So for span,
Yep.
that beam can be engineered for that span.
Yep. This is a standard supplemental beam. It's a hollow tube, and it holds a lot of weight, but you can deflect it. These posts are stronger than that beam. So if we have like a really huge span, or we have something bearing above, then we use a different beam.
Additionally, our team of engineers designed the Smart Jack system so that each component can be securely attached to each other, from base to post to bracket, and bracket to beam, ensuring that this system meets the requirements of your local building codes. And for ultimate protection, our joist assist brackets can strengthen
These are
and
huge.
reinforce the
They
floor
really spread
joist
the load
that
out well.
rests upon our support beam. And the great news is that there's no reason to wait to get your new rock-solid floors, because most installations are completed in just one day.
If you notice, sometimes you go in a basement, especially if it's a wet condition, you'll actually see the floor joist is dented from the beam, and that alleviates that. We put those joist assist brackets in there, and then we can really put the pressure on it, not crush the floor joist. All right. So this is what a crawl space looks like when we're done with it. Granted, there's some that we need 18 inches to work in, and we do remove dirt. So we have a formula about how much dirt has to come out and how much it is per square foot to take out, and that's something I figure on site. We have 3 layers that go into this. I'm going to show you the combinations. Maybe I don't need to get out the samples, but
I love seeing that one, I don't know crawl space.
yeah. So you look at this crawl space here, and that goes on there. This goes on there. This goes on. So the very first layer is drainage matting, and that allows air movement underneath there. It really lends itself to drying out that area. And it also, if you have radon, if we stuck a radon tube in there, we'd suck that plastic right down to the earth, and then we're not getting any air out of there. So the first thing goes on is drainage matting. Second thing is TerraBlock. It's an insulation. It's got vapor barrier on both sides, so it doesn't rot down there, doesn't break apart. And then this 20 mil thick clean space goes on that and laps up the sidewalls. If we have a stone basement, we finish it off with spray foam. If we have a block or poured wall, then we put rigid foam against it, vinyl face, foil back, fasten it to the wall, and then we spray foam the rim joists. So that's our encapsulation. If you got a wet crawl space, which we run into, we have a special piping system that goes around the perimeter, and we'll still run a drain tile right down the middle of it as a feed line. And it goes back to a sump, or it can drop down into the sump in the basement. We have special ducts that we can run that into, so it's only one sump being used. We have a smart drain that can go in crawl spaces also, and it'll actually beep, like if you have water, bathroom above it or kitchen above it, and something springs a leak and it comes down, hits that drain, it will sound off an alarm and let you know you have a problem. You can run a dehumidifier in a crawl space and have it drain directly into the smart drain, or a smart sump gets ejected out either to another sump or outside. So we have all sorts of layers of things that we can do to overcome any problems in a crawl space. Here's settlement.
Regardless of your foundation type, home construction starts with the footing. From there, the rest of the home is built. This means that all the weight from the building materials, like your foundation and framing, the siding and roof, is supported by the footing. And the footing is supported by the underlying soils. Remember that the Earth's crust was formed in layers, and then a developer likely moved the soil around your home to create better building sites, adding a layer of fill soil. All those layers are different and behave differently under the weight of your home. First, even if carefully compacted, that layer of fill soil will continue to consolidate over time. Then, during times of drought or even just an extended lack of rain, soils deeper below the surface dry out and shrink. And when the rains eventually do return, that water can now extend even deeper below the surface, softening and washing out supporting soils. Underground springs and shifting soil layers often contribute to even more movement in your home. Foundation cracks, interior damage, doors and windows that don't work. Settlement can happen to any home at any time, regardless of when it was built. But one thing we do know is that beyond all these problem soils is a layer that doesn't move. To ensure that your home doesn't experience any more settlement and to permanently fix the problem, the only right way is to bypass all these problem layers with a solution that reaches competent load-bearing soils. So that's exactly what we do.
So we go by a soils map to see where we're at and how many sticks we gotta put on. And when we give a bid, the bid is set. If I miss it by not having the right soil, then we just go until we get the right pressures. The push piers are based on a pounds per square inch compression pushing down. We use the weight of the house, so it has to have a substantial foundation. And the house can move up to half an inch as we're pushing that in. We stop at that point. We should have reached our pressure, and that much movement also tells us we need to stop. The helical piers feed themselves into the ground, so we use those on like garage slabs or shallow frost footings, and they'll feed themselves in. We dig out, we put our bracket in there, and we lift it up. And I'll show you one of these so you get a gist of what the bracket looks like, and etc.
What do the push piers run? How much?
Oh, that's the most expensive thing we do. I think we're per pier we're about $2,200. So let's talk about that for a minute. So we go back to your comment before about not knowing if it's settlement or heave. Heave doesn't normally happen if you got 7 feet of soil, 6 feet of soil. So it's probably settlement, but we look for that crack and we determine which part is moved. So then our engineering program tells us we gotta have X amount of piers because it's this type of foundation, that much backfill, etc. So like, for instance, we always start 2 feet from the corner and then we're probably 4.5 feet for every pier. We find that crack and then we go another 2 feet beyond that for another pier because that footing could be broke all the way back here. And we just see the crack in the wall here. So we have to take into account anything that we can see where something's settled down. And if we don't, we can do them on the inside or the outside, doesn't matter. If we do them on the inside, then we don't get any lift because we got all that soil against the wall outside. If we do it outside or inside with a dig out, then we can lift the house back. The most that I designed and we had success was 11 inches. We picked up a house in Winona. You could see out the block. And came in, we piered it, we picked it back up. It was really good. So then typically when we have settlement, we pick it back up, well, that concrete floor goes with that. And guess what? There's a big gap underneath the concrete floor. So we have foam that goes in there, just like we do outside. We foam that corner and brings that back up.
Now, this may be a random question, but I have been asked it before. Do you guys have financing then? Because sometimes some of these projects, if it's gonna be like 50, 60 grand.
Yep. Yeah, we offer financing. It's through a third party called Green Sky. And Green Sky specializes in unsecured construction loans. So you see a lot of Green Sky, people replacing windows, roofs, siding, things like that. That's foundation repair. We have to set a parameter with them. They have so many different programs. We have 3 options currently. We have a 15-year option, which is conventional. And then we have a 10-year option that has a promotion period of 6 months, where if you pay it off in 6 months, it's 0% interest. And then we have another promotion, non-typical loan, it's a 12 months, 0% interest, but you gotta make a big payment each month and have it paid off at the end of 12 months. Seems to work out good. It's very popular. We offer it to everybody. And as soon as I click the button, say we have financing, they're gonna tell you whether they need it or don't need it. Or typically, if they got a 650 credit rating or above, not upside down their payments, of course, they can get the loan. It's a 10-minute application. I can do it on my phone with the customer. I can send them an invitation to apply for that loan, and it takes them right to Green Sky. Or they can go through our website and click on financing, and it takes them to Green Sky. Oh yeah, good question. We do a lot of financing. We actually have to pay for the financing until we hit a certain threshold, and then they charge us. 10% down, we're the cheapest anywhere as far as our percentage down. If we do steel, like piering, etc., then we get 20% down, because there's too much material there. It's volatile, we need to order it right away.
That's for all the services that you provide, whether it's lifting a driveway or.
Yeah, driveways, concrete's 20% down.
Okay.
Anything to do with a large amount of steel is 20% down. And then the waterproofing is 10%, egress 10%, radon 10%. Gas check or credit card. Credit card, we charge you 3% because that's what we get charged. You can use a debit card and not get charged. Any other questions, guys? Anything you want me to go back on here? I'm going to show you how the piers work. And then we'll go on from there. I'll show you how the concrete works then after that. Maybe.
Regardless of your foundation type, home construction. Now that we understand that the soil is the cause of your settlement problem, we need to find the best solution that will take care of these issues permanently. The SupportWorks push pier system, installed by a SupportWorks dealer, answers the call by utilizing specifically engineered steel piers to support the home. on strong soils deep below the surface. Here's what you need to look for, because these are
important things that we have that nobody else has. This bending sleeve, a collar on the front, push pier. It makes a big difference in piering if it lasts.
Things that make the SupportWorks push pier system really stand out, and they're a must for any pier to provide a permanent fix. First, to protect the pier from bending during installation, we have a patented protective sleeve of steel just below the bracket, where bending forces are greatest. Second, to eliminate friction between the pier and the soil and ensure we reach maximum depth during installation, we put a collar at the very end of the first pier. This creates a little extra space around the piers as they're being pushed into the ground. Finally, all our steel piers are galvanized, not unprotected or powder coated. That means no loss of performance years later due to corrosion and rust. And they work like this. Heavy-duty steel brackets are connected to the foundation. Then the pier sections are carefully monitored as they're driven through the bracket, deep into the ground. So the piers will be driven until they rest on what our engineers call load-bearing strata, or bedrock. Then your home rests on the piers. It doesn't matter anymore how the soils under your home shift and settle, because the home is no longer resting on that soil. Not only will your home be permanently stabilized, but there's also the opportunity to lift it back up, often closing cracks and improving the operation of doors and windows that are sticking. And not only do we fix the broken area of homes, but since the same problem soil is likely sitting around the entire foundation, some choose to add additional piers to protect other areas of the home from ever having settlement.
So I'm just gonna bop through this to show you the difference.
Now that we understand that the soil heavy-duty foundation bracket is connected to the piers and secured to the foundation, and carefully monitored as they're advanced to support the home on strong soils deep below the surface. It works like this. We remove some soil to expose the footings. The helical pier by utilizing steel piers to support the home on strong.
So if you guys run into a garage that's built on a floating slab, a lot of times you'll see a break 4 feet in, 6 feet in, where the concrete's cracked, and it's on the evens where all the pressure is, and it breaks it. So we used to just pick that up with foam, but we found that typically the soil is so bad underneath there, it'll actually shove the foam into the ground too. So what we've done is we have a cheaper version of this helical, and it's called lift assist, and we'll lift it up with that, and then we fill with foam. We bring those garages right back to where they should be. And it's pretty amazing how well they look when they're done. I did it to my son's home in Fall Creek there. It's on clay soil, and we tried to use pump jacks to pick up the slab to, get some space for the foam, and the pump jack just drove into the ground. So we put 4 of these in on one side and picked it right up and foamed it, and it's good to go.
We had our cabin done with the helical piers.
Yeah.
The whole foundation redone with it.
Yeah.
Worked really well.
Yeah. No, they're pretty amazing what they can do. This is how we do concrete.
So what are your options when it comes to settled concrete? Well, traditional concrete repair methods like mud jacking are messy and they don't last. And slab replacement, it's expensive and disruptive. And of course, there are only 2 guarantees you get with new concrete. It'll get hard and it'll crack. But Polylevel is great because it addresses the 3 key reasons your concrete settled in the first place. It's waterproof and won't soften or wash out. It won't shrink from excessive heat, and it protects the soil below from dry out. And Polylevel actually compresses loose fill soil beneath as it lifts.
So this is shot out of that gun at 1,500 foot-pounds pressure. It just splats when it gets in there and spreads out. We have a couple other little techniques to try and get it to spread out more, or to control the expansion of it. So we very rarely, very, very rarely overlift. We can knock the air bubbles out of it, basically.
Polylevel works like traditional mud jacking, but with far superior materials. Instead of using a heavy mix of grout and mud that is susceptible to the same washout and dry out that caused the problem in the first place, Polylevel uses lightweight but super strong foam to raise slabs back up. Here's how it works. A small pea-sized hole is drilled into the slab, and polylevel is injected into the void below. Polylevel flows like water at first, finding and filling every crack and void. But in 5 to 10 seconds, the polylevel begins to expand under the slab, compressing and consolidating soils below as it lifts. The foaming action is very controlled, allowing for precise lifting that was impossible with past solutions. Once the concrete is leveled and stabilized, the injection ports are sealed and they become virtually invisible. And you can drive a car on your repaired driveway just 15 minutes later. Now, once you've lifted and leveled your concrete slabs, sealing joints and cracks is the best thing you can do to save that concrete. And Nexus Pro is the best way to do it. This isn't your standard big box store caulking. Nexus Pro is specifically engineered long-lasting joint sealant that's blended exclusively for support works. Nexus Pro is different because it remains highly flexible regardless of the weather conditions. It won't debond, and it's UV resistant, so it won't crack or break down. Nexus Pro lasts years longer than traditional sealants. It looks fantastic, and it cures in just hours, not days. Expert installation is the key. Our crew will carefully clean and prep all control joints and any cracks that need repair. Then several passes are made to ensure a perfect end result. A final coating of sand is the finishing touch for a look that's the envy of the neighborhood. We count on Polylevel and Nexus Pro to make our customers happy. And you can count on it too for immediate clearance and ultimate protection for all your concrete.
So I'm gonna find that well duct drain here. Fix windows, fix windows, fix windows. Almost done here.
I think of how many developments where they're grading soil and moving that dirt around.
Yep, we're gonna be in business
Never
for.
thought about that. There's so many new homes, like I'm just as nervous to walk into a new home with an unfinished basement as I am to walk into something that was 100 years old.
Yep, we're gonna be in business for a long time.
Oh, man.
Fix windows, place windows, notes in there. Why they haven't replaced windows, I don't know, but here's what a well duct drain looks like. You can see the outside up there in the upper right, and then it goes in and we actually have a modified water guard. We break out the concrete and it slides into that. We have another product called Fullmax, or sorry, Shot Lock, and that's when the walls are, there's nothing left of them. And we're gonna fix them with that. Shot Lock.
When foundation walls show signs of extreme deterioration or have even begun to cave completely, there are limited options when it comes to repair. Homeowners are often forced into a complete foundation removal and replacement, which is costly, disruptive, and time-consuming. Perhaps...
I got a question. You guys know when you walk in a basement and you see a wall here and it's only about so high or it's so high, and then there's another wall back 2 feet? You know what the purpose of that is?
Underpin?
Kind of, yeah. So what they did is they started out with just a crawl space and they decided they wanted a basement. So they dig the basement out, but they have to stay away from the original foundation so it doesn't cave in. We call that a Michigan ledge. It's just a term that we use as a company. But that's what that's doing. And what we see is that inner wall fails, and then it starts letting the outer wall fail because that soil's coming into the basement. So that's why you see those type walls and what they tried to do.
Worst of all, the home's new foundation is built in the exact same soil conditions that caused the problem in the first place. The ShotLock Shotcrete wall restoration system permanently stabilizes foundation walls that have extreme deterioration. The wall restoration process begins by installing the Power Brace wall system to stabilize the existing foundation wall. The Power Brace can be installed with no disruption to outside soils or landscaping. This foundation wall system, attached to the flooring system and secured to the concrete floor, installs quickly in your home, immediately and permanently halting the inward movement of your foundation walls. Next, reinforcement measures are installed against the damaged wall and secured to the Power Brace beam. Once the area is prepared, shotcrete is impacted onto the face of the existing wall, embedding the Power Brace beam into the new shotcrete wall. Due to the high force used to adhere the material to the wall, shotcrete undergoes a significant compaction process during installation. That produces more than double the strength of regular concrete. Finally, the wall finish is smoothed out and the work area is cleaned up, leaving you with a beautiful, stable, and completely restored foundation wall. Best of all, the shotcrete wall restoration system is warranted, adding ultimate peace of mind to your newly repaired foundation walls.
So there's companies out there that do shotcrete, but they don't do it this way. They don't stabilize the wall first. They don't pier it if it's broken. They just put another layer of concrete on. We use rebar. We have a shotcrete light where we just rebar the wall and put a new layer on, 5 inches thick or so. Then we have a regular shotcrete or ShotLock where we actually brace the wall and then do the rebar and spray it on. So there's a price difference there. And it depends on what kind of damage we're seeing and what the homeowner, quite frankly, wants to afford or is happy with. There's a lot shorter warranty on just the shotcrete with rebar than there is with shotcrete, rebar, and the bracing. The key to all this stuff is you gotta find out what the original problem is that caused that damage. If you're just covering up, you're gonna have the same damage again. It might take a while longer again, but you'll have the same damage. Is there anything else you wanna know about?
So Chuck, the most common house there is a 1,200 square foot ranch house.
Yep.
Is that the most common house we've ever looked at? The common thing in any of those is wall movement.
Yep.
So when we look at a house, we're not using lasers and stuff, we just visually look at it.
Yep.
Half of the walls we ever look at are gonna have some movement, right?
Yep.
Guaranteed. And usually you can see that. You see it. So
Yeah.
an inch and a half, 3, 4 inches, at what point would you consider some kind of structural problem?
I think it needs to be called out immediately and just show the customer that there is damage here. Now, you can relate some of it back to backfill. You can relate some of it to an 8-inch block instead of a 10 or a 12-inch block. And you guys know how to determine the size of the block, right? If you don't, I'll explain to you. I have no issue with that. So when we walk in a basement, the only place you can see, well, the easiest place to see is inside the basement. You go to the corner, and every block is 16 inches long, or if every block's 24 inches long, we get some of those. So that next block that's tucked into the corner, if we take that measurement, is 8 inches, and this block is a 16-inch block. Well, 16 minus 8, that says we have an 8-inch block. Okay? Same thing goes 10-inch block. If we have 6 inches in that corner, take that off 16 inches, it gives us a 10-inch block. So that's the easiest way to determine it. I can tell you 90% of what you're seeing is an 8-inch block when you see damage immediately. They just did the cheap way and thought it was okay, you know, and I think it was 96 somewhere there that the code changed where you actually had to pour a 10-inch wall, if you had, you know, a 40-foot wall, and you had to go to a 12-inch wall if you had, you know, a 50-inch or 50-foot wall, or put pilasters in a corner in somewhere. Before that, the 8-inch wall flew, you know, didn't matter how long it was, just at your own risk. And I pushed some walls in when I was building, got a little overzealous and wanted to get on it, you know, and didn't have the floor system on it. Yeah, and so we dig them out, we push them back out. Well, there's a crack there somewhere, but we pushed it back out at the time and then re-backfilled it. I have another horror story when I worked for somebody else, and we actually had to build a wall inside it, et cetera. But with the back bracing that's available nowadays, the foot locks and et cetera, there's really no reason to push a wall during backfill. But we do see it. Typically though, when you see that crack, horizontal crack, and it's about 2 feet down from the top, that's a frost crack. And you know, those big booms you hear in the middle of the winter, you think the rafter's breaking, that's your basement. Basement wall. Frost pushing.
A few winters ago, I was doing a pre-listing inspection for a guy on a Friday. He told me that the Wednesday before I got there, so his basement was the engineered precast concrete foundation. He had a hot tub that sat outside his back of his house that broke open and started leaking. So it melted its way through the frost right next to the house, and then it all refroze, and he heard a loud pop like that. His foundation popped in 4 inches.
Yeah.
Shattered the panel.
Just
2 days before the
immensely
inspection.
strong. Yeah.
People put too much faith in those.
He was
hot tubs.
quite disappointed.
The other thing you guys can look at also, we walk up, we get these problems once in a while where it's a block wall and the face of the block is coming off. That's excess moisture in the block. So it's just full of moisture, and then it freezes and it pops that block off on the outside, because the inside's warm enough not to freeze. But the outside pops off because there's too much moisture. So that's again a classic, you need to waterproof it, you need to drain the water out of that block. You know, the coating they put on the outside, you know, these guys go, oh, I saw them put tar on there, there shouldn't be any water. Well, we know what good that is.
Tar.
Not much.
Yeah, when this is we tar.
Yeah. Yeah, and then.
That's the worst thing to do.
And then you put tar in the groundwater besides, you know, it didn't make any sense. So went to epoxy, and then I went to platen, and then I went to platen and insulation. So I had continuous insulation all the way up when I built it. So there was no breaks in it, never had a wet basement, but at some point, it's gonna plug up. Yeah.
Anything with slab on grade that you, run to?
Yeah.
Even with, now, inflow radiant heat,
Mm-hmm.
how do you cope with stuff like that?
We, very carefully.
Yeah.
I have a $10,000 scope, thermal, and I look at the floor and I can actually take a shiny, like metal rod with a marker on the end of it, and I can actually reach out there and see where the tubing is. And I mark it for the guys when they're gonna lift it. But what we see on slab on grade, so just to clarify slab on grade, is we have frost walls, and the slab is poured inside the frost wall, okay? Good guys put a ledge on there, some don't, okay? So they just compact it, concrete's poured with no ledge. What we see there is, apartment buildings and et cetera, they did some backfill and didn't do it well, and you can never do it well. And it just is never as good as virgin soil. But they poured the foundation on that, well, that foundation rolls, the footing rolls is what we call it. So that earth is given out, and it allows the foundation to tip like that. The wall tips out, and all of a sudden the slab is going down too. You see a big gap along the wall. So what we do is what's called reverse anchors. So we'll either use a helical, we drill a hole in the side of the foundation, dig it out, drill a hole in the side of the foundation, push that foundation back, and then we can lift that slab back up where it belongs. In-floor heat for waterproofing, we either go to the dry track, the old beaver system, or we just say, Mr. Customer, you gotta realize we're probably gonna hit a pipe that needs to be repaired. And they're very easily repaired now. You know, shark bites are legal to use in high pressure plumbing. And that's only low pressure plumbing, it's in for heat, so it's an easy fix if you hit one. So, yeah, good questions. Anything else?
I can't think of anything else. What about like, so if they need, the customer needs, they got a short window for their inspection period,
Yeah.
and they need estimates for, something like that, or at least a second opinion for the evaluation.
Yeah.
What is your response time or capability?
We have hired a lot of extra people that do what I do, so we can usually get out there the same week. And if you come in and say, hey, we need this by this date, we got guys, all of us will do a night or a weekend. You know, we put it out there on our little network and say, we'll run this appointment. And, you know, a job like that comes in as a self-gen sometimes, if it's a referral, and then they have a little more incentive to get out there and do it. If you guys refer us, I go out and run the appointment, I get $50, whether they buy or not. You guys get $50, whether they buy or not, those referral. So, on average, it costs the company $175 per appointment run for the advertising. So every little thing of advertising we have out there has a specific phone number attached to it. So we know exactly where the advertisement is paying off, but it goes through House or what's the other one, Angie's, all that, those networks, Monkey Tree and something else. Anyway, they all charge, you know, they'll give us a referral, they call in and say, here's your referral, contact them. Well, as soon as we make contact with them, we pay that money. Right
I
out
think
of
that
the
might be a conflict of our code of ethics and standards.
I'm not 100% sure.
Do you
if
fix
inspectors-
this?
I'm not 100% sure if inspectors can take that referral fee.
We can, I've talked to Julie about it.
No, I don't agree with you. You know,
No,
you can
it's
refer
not-
multiples.
But you're not the one that does the fining or the suspensions, right? I mean, you're not the, it's,
Right.
it's about our association and about.
Well, let me ask you though, do you fix the wall? Do you get any
That's not,
profit
that's
from
not,
it?
no, we can't do work on anything. that
So-
we-
Right.
I think what I'm trying to say is like, I will absolutely give people your card, but I don't think I can take the $50. I think
Okay,
it's just-
well, tear it up then
Yeah.
when it comes.
Yeah, cause I think,
I mean, if you say I don't want it,
yeah.
fine. And there might be somebody else that you know that you can say, refer, we don't care. My point was, it's cheaper for us to have referrals from you than it is to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So we can talk about that more. I don't wanna get anybody in trouble, but it is, you know, a possibility.
Well, behind it is, we are inclined to find issues to gain that $50 to refer.
Yeah, well, that's a poor thought process. I mean, that's somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about when they go down that road. You're identifying something that you don't know about. So you're gonna have an expert call that can define it, and maybe not anything.
Well, like Jim said, though, we'll definitely give you your info,
Yeah.
but we just can't take the 50.
Sure.
See, we don't usually, if we do a report, we say for the evaluation or something, it's actually the seller who actually hired it, that's what we usually do.
Right.
Recommend evaluation by a
Well, it's supposed to
contractor,
be.
plumbers, it's supposed to be, but it usually goes to the seller.
Yeah, and what's
We're not
happening-
making, the buyer isn't gonna
Right.
make the comment, usually it's the seller.
Yeah,
That
and what's
has to
happened a
hire
little bit
the-
lately,
Yep.
and is that the buyer wants us in there to give the final blessing and an estimate of what it's gonna cost, they use that to chisel on the seller.
Well,
So-
it goes into what we call contingent period.
Yeah. And that's a no-win.
Yeah, we do get your name, yeah, that's.
That was one of the number one questions we get, how much do you think that'll
Yeah,
cost?
exactly, yeah.
So if you want a rough estimate, it's $1,000 per anchor down the wall.
Yeah.
Okay? It's $2,200 per pier down the wall. The waterproofing, that's all lineal footage based.
I got nothing.
I never answer that question, I said, I'll show you in a little while. You know, once I get my ducks in a row, I gotta have all the measurements. Otherwise, you know, you always step on yourself if you try and get an estimate up front.
Very interesting, a lot of stuff I learned.
Yeah, good, I'm glad you got something out of it. If you guys want more books or anything, you can contact these guys or contact me direct, and I'll try and hook you up with more books if you wanna give them out if customers have questions.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be in this comprehensive, even if it's just kind of a list of services or something, just shorter pamphlet.
That's probably the
Cause these get spendy, I know.
They do, but yeah, again, in the big picture, it's cheap advertisement, it's great information, you know. Even if you just use it as a reference, have them take a picture out of it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I have a file for, anybody's got questions, I just think of what processes are out there.
Yeah, so like, Basement Systems, they have stuff on YouTube, okay, that's that network we belong to. Support Works, Omaha has YouTube videos. There's a lot of other companies that pop up as soon as you look at those videos that have little cookies on them, you know? So there's choices there as well.
You ever see a foundation or a house or any scenario that's just such shit, you just walk away and you don't even?
There's been a couple, and most of it's because the homeowner doesn't wanna fix it correctly. Cause I just tell them right up, I said, we'll do what we can for you under your parameters, but we have to give you something we can warranty. If we can't warranty it, it's gonna be in big bold letters on there that we aren't warrantying it, and this is what it would take to get a warranty, okay? The wall caved in, you know, that guy in Alaska, it's like, I went down there and looked, took pictures, and it's like, there's nothing we can do, you need to call a new basement company, have a new basement put in. Some of the floors, we've run into have enough issue where they need to replace the floor system. Now, we'll do a few joists here and there, but we're not gonna go in and put in all new floor structure for them. What else? Stone foundations, we can run into a lot of hidden landmines on stone foundations. You know, I don't know if you're aware, but a 2-foot stone foundation is 2 layers of rock. It's not solid all the way through, 90% of the time. It's got a void in the middle. And that's where they threw all the chips from the stones as they were shaping them and put them in there.
Beer cans.
Yeah, beer cans, yeah, exactly. So, you know, water can get in over here, it shows up over there, and they just want that hole fixed, you know, where the water's coming out. Well, that's not the problem, it's just gonna move down the line. So, we have to talk them through that. Try and educate them.
You guys, I'm from southern Wisconsin. When I moved up here to, Pierce County, western part of the state, I really didn't understand, you know, sinkholes are a real thing. Like, you hear them down in Florida, you know, it's different, but I noticed, like, even on my in-laws' farm, around the house, like, they'll throw rock off the field in one spot, and that'll never pile up, it'll just keep sinking.
Going, yeah.
And I noticed now, even in my backyard, I've got an 1890 schoolhouse, and it's got a old, well system.
Yep.
Hand pump. And I noticed around that concrete slab, dirt's starting to sink away, so we had drought, and then we had high rains this last year. And now I'm seeing a lot of, like, over this last summer, a lot of soil movement around homes in different drainage system situations that people haven't experienced before, where there's hydrostatic pressure on a wall they've never had in moisture before.
Right. Just like that video explained, you know, that you get those dry spells and the ground opens up even further, so more water gets down there. It just exacerbates the problem.
Yeah.
It just builds on itself. You know, like that hole that they're throwing rocks into. If you dug it out, there's probably water like running like a creek through there, just washing it out. That's why they don't let you have wells underground anymore. You know, you gotta have above ground, no pits. And growing up, that we had, our pressure tank was in the ground, out, 50 feet from the house.
So how do you determine when you use the different types of helicals into the ground, all the way in big plates versus the adjustable steel posts?
Every house is different, and we look at what we have for clearances and the lot lines, etc. What kind of soil we're dealing with out there, what kind of grade, how much the basement's finished, quite frankly. So the least invasive way to anchor a wall is a geolock anchor with a dead man out in the yard, okay? Because we're only cutting a hole like this in your finished wall, and we can put a cover panel over it that you can take on and off to adjust it. You do power braces, you have to have clearance from the floor all the way up into the floor joist, and then we gotta be able to see the floor joists and know exactly where we're at, still be in our parameters for our layout, how many feet apart. So my go-to is geolocks if I can make them work. You know, the guys hate me in the wintertime when they're chipping through the frost, but we still do it. We do it year round. The carbon armor, I really like that product. The best time for carbon armor is when you first see the crack. You go in, you stabilize that wall, it hasn't moved much yet, it's done. All of those cost about the same until you add waterproofing. When you add waterproofing, then the power braces are the most expensive because we have to have a bracket. We mount a water guard bracket on there, and the water will actually pass through that bracket. So, but that's another $70 per bracket to do that. So it adds up. The carbon armor is very strong. I mean, it's fantastic. You see some companies trying to utilize it, they're not utilizing it correctly. They're kind of splatting on a big patch in the middle of the wall because that's where they saw the movement. Well, the rest of the wall's gonna continue to move, and that's gonna make that patch weak. Because as soon as you don't have that tension on that spot anymore, this moved, well then that becomes useless. It's just a piece of fiber you got on the wall, and that will tear. So the idea is to have a systematic approach to it so that none of the wall moves. And when we fix a wall, and we give you a lifetime warranty on it, the entire length of that wall is fixed. So we consider like a inside corner or something like that. You have an offset wall by 4 feet and it continues on down. That's actually 3 separate walls. So we can fix this wall, and that's warranty. That 4-foot wall, sometimes it needs to be fixed also. We put an anchor in there, that's warranty. The next wall may not have anything wrong with it, it was just these 2 walls that were the problem. So we approach it, that's part of the inspection process. We really pick it apart.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Chuck.
I like to share the info. It's good, you know, when we get the referrals from you guys that you recognize it, because I really feel it takes a lot of pressure off you. You know, everybody's after your butts if they find something later when they've been in the house. And it's like, well, why didn't the inspector pick that up? So maybe it wasn't like that. You know, maybe it was something that they couldn't see at that time. Because, you know, we'll have people pull the wall down, and you couldn't have seen that until the wall was down. So,
Some
and they
people
try
just
and
have
blame
so
you.
much shit, you can't see anything.
Right, yeah, we get the same issue. You know, and I have specific notes for that. Get the personal items out of here, and, you know, we make them move water heaters, pressure tanks. We do have ways to go around stuff if they absolutely stomp their feet on it, but, you know, pressure tank, I like to go around the pressure tank instead of behind it. I use a trench drain. So if that pressure tank ever springs a leak, it has some opportunity to get into our waterproofing system before it flows across the floor. It took me 3 years to get the company to buy into that, but they understand my thinking now, and they let me do it, so. It works. Anything else?
Thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, you're
Thank you,
welcome.
thank you.
Again, you guys got questions, you can call me direct. If you want more books or something, let me know.
Can we get any of those videos?
You can research them online, I can't.
Envy, it's kind of proprietary.
What is it?
Envy of the neighborhood.
Ah, jeez, nice. Envy of the neighborhood.
MD?
Like, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll probably look into that one of my boring nights at home. I'll see if there's-
People love to watch video when they're doing something, or we love to watch one when we don't.
Right, don't follow me around.
It's a long password.
I always give them options if they want it. So one of the big things I do is I actually bring